Okay, this is the extra credit question, and I know this was difficult. One person got close to an answer, but they were not able to get the answers we were looking for. And this has something to do with what's going to happen in your own careers. You're going to be reading a textbook and not understand what the textbook presents to you. So I'm going to claim this question over here is it's a tough question. I agree with that. It causes a lot of confusion. So what I want to do is I want to just, I did type it up, by the way, but I want to walk through it with you. So if I walk through this, I'm going to change the problem a little tiny bit. I can use letters X and Y. So I'm going to say sine of X. And the reason for that, it looks a little bit more familiar to most students. And then the other problem would be cosine. And that would be what? The alpha is the X, right? So put down X minus Y equals 1/2. And they go on to say the beta is greater than 0. Well, my beta in this problem is the Y is greater than 0. And what they want to know is they want to know what the minimum value of Y is that satisfies this. Well, first of all, I got troubles immediately. And my first troubles is remembering that I've done something like this in Math 120. I solved equations before. So let me write down what the answer to this one over here would be. I want to remind you, you would draw a picture of the sine curve. It looks sort of like this over here and say, when is take a ratio of minus 1/2? Well, the reference angle would be 45 degrees. I'm sure you've seen me do this before. You may not remember, by the way, it's possible. And that, again, goes back to a level of engagement or interest. I'm not saying everyone's interested in this subject. They don't have to be. You find anything that's interested and you're going to thrive in it. If you're interested in it, that is. So what's the first angle going to be? It's between, well, that'd be 225, right? I'm using degrees for a reason, by the way. It's my first language. And the other one could have been what? It would be 360 minus 45, which would be 315, right? And there's an infinite number of solutions there. Now, I got to do this now. And someone's going to say, how are you going to do that? Well, it's a little bit different now. This is X minus Y. Well, let me remind you, the cosine curve looks like this over here. All right, and then I'm looking for that reference that gives me 1/2. And that would be, what would that be? What would theta R over here be? Theta reference for the cosine to be 1/2. Well, that would be 30 degrees, right? Let me make sure I'm saying that right. 30. Oh, no, it's 60. Again, you should know the reference triangles at this point. So the cosine of 60 would be 1/2. Yeah. So what do I get over here? This would be 60 degrees plus, and these are things that you should be able to do. All right. So, and even if you're making mistakes, you're able to do that. Plus 360 degrees. Okay. And what's the other one going to be? Well, the other one's going to be in that last quadrant. So that's going to be 300 degrees. Okay. This comes a tough part now. And I know that. I got to understand, if I were really tired, I just would say, I have no idea. All right. I just wouldn't know what to do. But what do I know? Okay. Kind of take a look at it. I know X minus Y is those numbers over there. And I know X could be, well, I'm going to kind of look at this. And, I'm looking at, I know Y is positive, right? So I'm looking at this thing and I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at this, and I'm wondering, what would I get to get a small angle? Right? They want a minimum, right? So let me just try the 315. So I'm going to say X is 315. What's going to be minus Y now? And I'm going to look at this one. I'm going to say that, kind of looking at this and this, and they kind of only differ by 15 degrees, right? Right? See if that makes any sense to me. 315, 300. Yeah, I think I know what Y is now. What's Y? Y would have to be 15 degrees. Let me convert that to rating because I really shouldn't be speaking degrees, not in the land of mathematics though. And what do you have here? That would be pi over 180 degrees, which would be pi. 15 goes into 180. The degrees cancel off that way 12 times. That's the minimum. Okay, let me explain what students should be able to do at the Math 120 level. They should be able to do this. This is doable. You can do that at the Math 120, and you should be able to do this at the Math 120. This is not easy though. This to me is tough. All right, so I'm going to say that the value is pi over 12. Now, granted, I got to be honest with you, you're going to see textbooks. And, certainly this is me typing up a solution over here and talking about, all the work that I would do if I were looking at this and really analytically looking at it. But the bottom line is it boils down to some really simple reasoning skills. All right. The minimum is pi over 12, by the way. So, so I want to go to software now. And so I'm always saying to myself, I can convince myself of just about anything, but I would like to take a look at software and see what the answer looks like with using software. So just give me a second. And I'm going to go back to that question. Where was that question? Let me just discount that. Oh, it's right over here. I'm sorry. I'm going to graph this out. And someone says, what are you graphing out? I want to go over here and make sure am I sharing the screen with you first of all? Yeah. So I graphed out sine of x equals minus 1 over the square root of 2. I graphed that out. Now someone says, what is that? Let me color that for you. I'm going to make that magenta. Right. That's a bunch of vertical lines. We'd expect that. Now I want to graph this guy out. I'm going to make it green. And yep, I'm using software. Okay. And that's a bunch of lines that look like this. I'm expecting that, a bunch of lines. And what did I say? And again, you go back and read the question again. I'm looking for the smallest value of the beta. Well, I call beta the y. So I'm really looking for the smallest point of intersection. And if you look at this thing, there's really just an infinite number of points of intersection, but I'm looking where that magenta line and the green line crosses. And I'm going to say, the beta's got to be here, right? And that's going to be y value. Looking at the graph, I don't know what that is. But what I did was I plotted the point. Now someone says, what point did you just plot? I plotted the point where the y value was 15 degrees. Now you can't plot 15 degrees. You got to do the radian measure, which is pi over 12. And I said the x value for that thing was 315 degrees. All right. And again, I couldn't plot the 315. I had to do the radian measure. And I converted that to radian. So that's a picture of it. So let me just point this out. I was happy to see students try. One student actually submitted an answer. It was an incorrect answer, but I knew they were getting close. I knew they were getting close. They just weren't quite clear on the answer. And they definitely did the beginning part of the problem, which every student at Essex County College should be able to do the first part. Let me go back to that and point out what I mean by that. Every student at Essex County College should be able to do, well, I shouldn't say at Essex County College, every student who's taken Math 120 at Essex County College with an instructor who's actually taught the material for Math 120 should be able to do what we did over here. That's something we've done in class. What they may not be able to do though, because it's outside the normal loop of the type of questions we give you, They may not have been able to do this. And I'll be honest with you, I don't find this easy either, but I'm thinking in degrees. And I got 15 degrees, which is a pretty small number. Then I converted it to pi over 12. What the problem has, and I want to point this out, when you go forward educationally, a large part of your education is going to be reading a textbook to become educated in that field. Now, some people say, well, I know plenty of students have gotten through school, and by the way, college students included, who've never read a book. The thing is, they're not educated. They may have gotten through school, but they haven't become educated. And education requires reading. The problem with reading, though, a lot of times, you're going to see people's work, and it's going to be absolutely confusing. By the way, this might have confused you too, but again, I want to point out, you should be able to do, and you should be able to do this as well, the 15-degree part. This is the part I don't think people could get. I know that some guy got there, he just couldn't get that. I find that tough too. I had to think. I want you to think as well. But again, the answer over here is pi over 12. Here's the problem though. Typically, you're going to see textbooks. They're going to be written typically by people that probably know the subject. And I say that, probably know the subject. I'm even kind of curious about that. Does anyone really understand the subject? Well, they have varying levels of understanding, but a lot of people, they're reading this thing and they don't understand what they're reading. Part of the reason they don't understand it is they're speaking in radian measure. And when people start speaking in radian measure, people glaze over. So that's why I did degrees. And again, if you do that, maybe you'll come up with the right answer. This was tough though. No one got it. But again, one guy got close, which I was really happy to see. And it's really good to see people trying. All right. Thanks again.